Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu unserem nächsten Stream-Vortrag in unserem Surview Festival. Ich freue mich sehr, heute hier die Catherine Newman bei uns begrüßen zu dürfen. Wir werden auch gleich auf Englisch switchen, damit sie uns auch versteht. Catherine Newman ist der Chief Customer Officer bei Excelos, dem intellektuellen Eigentümer von ITIL, und wird uns ein bisschen was erzählen über die neuen Extension Modules, die wir ja ab diesem Jahr in dem ITIL-Qualifizierungsschema haben. So, dieser Vortrag wird auf Englisch stattfinden und dementsprechend switche ich jetzt auch auf Englisch, sodass Catherine uns auch versteht. Hi, Catherine. Warmly welcome to our event, and it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Marcus.
I said the delegates that you will give us an introduction to the new ITIL4 extension modules and what we can expect there and how they are fitting into the qualification scheme and stuff like that. You're in London right now?
I'm in London right now, yes. Quite a sunny day in London, but cold. So yes, I'm here.
Yeah. How's the weather in London right now?
Yeah, it's very sunny, very cold now. It's got very cold, and but yeah, we're working up to Christmas and very much hoping that we have a Christmas. Obviously, all of us in Europe are touch and go, aren't we, at the moment? As you know, we're all looking at our COVID regulations, but we're hoping for a good Christmas, and I hope you will too, wherever you're dialing in from.
Yes, yes. These news are terrible. You have sunshine in London. That's not fair. Yeah?
I know, it's very unusual, isn't it? But we've got sunshine at the moment. Cold, but sun.
Yeah, here in Frankfurt it's cloudy and gray and rainy and cold and wet. So I have to come to London right now.
You have to come to London, yes.
Then I will give you the presentation rights, and we are very curious about the news, what you have to, the insights, what you will give us today.
Lovely, let's show my screen. Are you seeing the screen?
Yeah, we see your screen. For the delegates, if you have any questions meanwhile the presentation, do not hesitate to ask it via the question tool in your control panel. And of course, you can write down your questions in German, and I will translate it to Catherine. And then we will not let her out of the session without answering all the questions. So I will secure that. So Catherine, your stage, have fun, and we are very curious what you have to show us.
Thank you, Marcus. And yes, don't worry, I won't run away. I will be here for as long as you need me to answer all your questions. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Catherine Newman. I'm Chief Customer Officer at Axelos. But now, as many of you know, PeopleCert. So obviously Axelos is now a part of PeopleCert. Very exciting news. We're in the middle of sorting out what that looks like. So you can see we've got a little integrated slide here. But obviously what I'm talking about today is products rather than the company, but I just thought I'd explain that to you. So very exciting times. So you've come to hear about the extension modules in ITIL, just launched. So really exciting. I think that we are, developing even more in ITIL. Obviously, those of you that know and love ITIL, we obviously redid ITIL4 in February 2019. And we've been busy working, even during COVID times, to get all of those upper levels out. And I'll come on to what those are in a minute. And we've got extension modules as well. So I hope you'll be very excited by seeing what we can talk about today. So let me just recap on the framework. So just to remind ourselves, obviously we've got the two learner streams. We've got the managing professional and the strategic leader streams, and you can see all of the frameworks that get you to those designations. All of those are out now and really gathering pace. It's always wonderful to look on notice boards and people shouting on LinkedIn and equivalents that they've got their designations. You'll see the ITIL Master. I know there will be some questions around ITIL Master. That certainly has been a casualty, I think, of COVID, that we have not developed the ITIL Master designation. I can promise you it is now top of the list, and we will be doing very soon some announcements around how people get to that ITIL Master. So that there will be more news on that soon, but we've certainly not forgotten ITIL Master. And just to say, within the framework, you've got lots of associated materials that absolutely link to the syllabus, including the 34 practices and associated practice guides, which are available in electronic format through my ITIL on the Axelos website. So as well as the core guidance, you've got a lot of support materials available to you and your students. Really come here to talk about are the 2 new extension modules, which I'm delighted to be talking to you about today. One of the publications that we worked on for 2021 focused on the sustainability, and I'm delighted to say that we worked with DEFRA. So DEFRA is the UK government Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. So it is the government department, and we've developed this product with them. In fact, I was at the COP26 event, the big one in Glasgow, and we formed an e-alliance with DEFRA. So we are working around the table with many top companies on the e-alliance and sustainability. So this new extension module I'm very excited about, because it's really got that pedigree, I think, which I hope you'll feel excited about too. So why sustainability? A lot of people said, well, why sustainability in ITIL? Pause on that for a minute and think why. Because even if you think your company isn't impacted by it, a lot of people say, oh, sustainability, that's not me. Chances are you live in a country that's passing more laws every year on things like carbon emissions, or racial and gender equality. And these are laws that whatever you're doing in your company impact you. Even if you think your company isn't impacted by it, chances are your customers are impacted, and so are getting more picky about who they buy from. So a lot of these things are not just about your company, but who your customer bases are. And even if you think your company or even your customers, chances are your employees are impacted, for their health and physical safety, to their access to services. So I think we see it globally that more and more of the dialogue is around sustainability. So I think our message is don't be a straggler in this space. So that's why we wanted to do this sustainability module within ITIL. Now, when people hear sustainability, more often than not, they think it means environmental stewardship. I think we all have this view of the word sustainability, so that it means different things to different people. But let's see if animations are working. So in other words, they equate to things like reducing plastics or paper. But actually, it's far, far broader than that. And that's what we are trying to get in this book and this framework. You still see my screen. There we are. I have my face covering one of the slides. There we go. So the sustainability challenge. I've stopped working. There we go. So the sustainability challenge is more than just a sustainability challenge. It's actually a management challenge, and that's what this whole framework is around. So you as corporates on this call, and ATOs if you're working with corporates, it's around the management challenge in your organisation to embed sustainability. So how sustainability should be in your organisations, what your organisations are doing now. So it's looking at what you do now and what you should be doing in the future, and obviously so on. We also found that organisations had a better chance at successfully addressing their questions if they integrated sustainability in their existing business or operating models. So it's obviously assessing what you're doing now, thinking about your existing, and then obviously how you are planning for the future. So a lot of companies are creating sustainability officers, for example, and the insight allowed us to recognise the sustainability challenge we could framework if the management challenge was there. So I hope you understand that this isn't just about sustainability, it's about the whole management within your organisation. But once you've realised that, you realise actually it links to very much a normal management challenge in your organisation. So your vision, your how, your mission, and how to get there. So, you know, in any sustainability, people take it in one view, and actually you can really transpose it to what your own management challenge is in your organisation. So for those of you who correctly identified the continual improvement model, well done. So as you can see, those of you very familiar with ITIL, obviously how we're embedding this into ITIL is obviously embedding it with the ITIL framework. So yes, those questions make up the continual improvement model, and that's how we structure the book. We wrote about how to treat sustainability initiatives.
Oh, es scheint so zu sein, dass wir gerade einen Aussetzer auf der Leitung nach London haben. Jetzt warten wir mal kurz, ob die Catherine wieder zurückkommt. Catherine, can you hear me? Now we can hear you. There seems to be, there was a problem on the line.
Yes. I'm back. I just got a message saying you couldn't hear me. Fine. Great. I'm back.
Now you are back.
Thank you, Marcus. Right. So hopefully you heard me talk about the continual improvement model. Hopefully that came across. So let's just define what we mean by that model and how we're aligning it to the sustainability again. So the first one is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to come on to those in the next slide in a little bit more detail. I suspect some of you will be aware of them. Some of you might not be. So when I come on to the next slide, it will be interesting. I think because I've been so embedded in the development of this, so embedded of working with DEFRA and the government, it becomes second nature. And certainly when you're at an event like COP26, you're talking these goals the whole time and it becomes second nature. But I appreciate for many organisations, sustainability is something that many may still not be thinking about. And going back to how I started this, in a way you cannot ignore it. You cannot now ignore sustainability. It will be coming in laws and your customers will be expecting it. So your teams need to be comfortable in terms of how they're embedding it in their systems. Maturity assessments are part of that. Obviously, if you dialed in yesterday to Luis Ribeiro's presentation on our ITIL maturity model, you will see that we've got more products that help you assess the maturity of your organisation. So I'm not going to go into the maturity assessments again. That was a separate presentation. But everything is there for you to assess assess what you need to do in your company. Then it's about adapting the service value system to integrate sustainability into the organisation. So the service value system, as you know very well with ITIL, and it's about how we're integrating that into sustainability. So to recap, not about creating something completely new. This is about how you build in sustainability into your existing businesses. So it's working with all your structures and frameworks, but how you help build that in to solve your problems. And obviously integrated reporting and KPI. It goes without saying. There we are, management of complex system. So the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on these because I don't want to assume that everybody, excuse me, just got to check something. Yeah, I'm good for time. I don't want to assume that everybody knows these. So this is literally how they come up on the UN website. And of course, you may say, well, we can't adopt all of those. We use them as a reference point when talking about integrating business and sustainability. You could set out, for example, to be #1 provider of online marketing solutions committed to gender equality and supporting local. We've signed up to them. We've signed up in terms of trying to manage things and monitor our carbon footprint with the deadline of 2030, as you know, from the UN. So it's not about looking at it and thinking it's a massive thing to do, but it's very important. And I think going forward, being the United Nations and the global footprint this has, I think you will have, as corporates, more and more pressure to be embedding these going forward. So one last point on sustainability, you have to adapt your organisations to incorporate sustainability and to be sustainable. There's two different things. So embedding sustainability and being sustainable. Obviously, you have to adapt that service value chain, the service value system, which there we are. Again, the picture, hopefully many of you will know, there's that service value chain. That is the ITIL service value system. Within that, you've got sustainability and behaviour and action, so that's your guiding principles. You've got sustainable governance of sustainable organisations, so that's your governance section. Sustainability and value streams, re-architecting practices for sustainability and making the service value stream more sustainable over time. So that continual improvement, as you know, with ITIL, it's always around continual improvement. It's never just we've managed it. It's always about how do you make it better. It's always that virtuous circle. So I hope I've excited you about sustainability. It's one of those things I found to begin with, thinking, why ITIL, why sustainability? But really having worked on it, being at COP26, and listening, being on the E-Alliance, actually listening to all these big companies being very, very passionate about sustainability, you realise how important it's going to be for your organisation, your customers and your employees. So that's why I wanted to very much present the sustainability module. And I'd like to now move on to the cloud module. So we haven't been lazy. We haven't done just one extension module. We've done 2 extension modules, and I'll explain how they fit into the overarching framework a little bit later on.
Catherine, I have a question here to the sustainability model. Perhaps we can answer this before we switch to the cloud model.
Absolutely.
One question which I had here is, who should attend these courses? Is it more management training or for everybody in IT?
My view would be everybody in IT, because so many people are having to implement. So yes, you could argue the top level managers need to understand, but I don't think you can just have it as an understanding at a top level and not embed it into the organisation. So I think many of these things will need to be embedded throughout, actually. So it's not just a management thing, although it's important that at that very top level that there's an ethos within the company around embedding it. I hope that explains that, Marcus. I don't know if you want to translate that into
Okay. And the second question, are there any requisites, any things what I need to have before to go to get these qualifications? Do I need an ITIL foundation or something?
No, very good question. And the answer is no, you don't need ITIL foundation. We spent a lot of time discussing this with DEFRA. We started off saying, yes, you need an ITIL foundation, but actually we were worried that that was too limiting and that there were many parts of organisations that would need to embed sustainability, and we felt it was too limiting. So we worked on the whole framework as not having to have a prerequisite of foundation. Obviously it helps. I mean, I'm talking all the time here about you know, people's understanding of ITIL, but you do not need it as a prerequisite. So you can come in and just study this as is.
Okay. And the last question what comes in, how does the exam looks like?
It will be, well, it'll be part of our online proctored exams, very much sort of the multiple choice question banks that we have.
Okay, great. That was all the questions. So now we can switch to the cloud services course.
Thank you for stopping me. That was good to do that, I think, before we move on to cloud. So, obviously, I think for ITIL, cloud seems more of a natural fit than sustainability, actually. I mean, I think a lot of people said, oh, yes, cloud, that makes a lot of sense. But I hope I persuaded you on sustainability. We did this. We developed the collaboration with cloud service providers and partners. So we spent a lot of time working with partnerships on this. just one of them. And we're not saying we're aligned with, we're not putting this on our frameworks, but just if you wanted to nip in and have a look at the AWS blog. So this was one of our partners. More and more of our partners are beginning to blog now about this, which is very exciting. So you can see collaborations we've had to get to where we need to get to. So these are the kind of things that we'll start obviously posting more, and you'll see more as the certification develops. So the big challenge that we looked at was how organizations could benefit from cloud computing, perhaps making it part of their sustainability initiatives, or perhaps looking at reducing costs. So whatever the reason, our research showed that there is a management challenge that wasn't being adequately addressed. We have also referenced it to ITIL as a framework in the ITSM domain. So the M stands for management framework. And so this guidance is not on the technology and engineering considerations, because obviously there's loads of people in any organizations that knows about the technology and engineering implications of cloud. But building cloud solutions in focusing on what is the solution across the business in all management areas that you need to solve, and then how will cloud or implementing cloud help you do that. So this isn't a technical, it's about how this framework helps you embed cloud in whichever part of an organization you're in. So the management challenge we observed spanned from defining digital strategy or tying cloud to a digital strategy. So understanding what type of solution made the most sense to who to engage with, what commercial terms were acceptable, how to manage and measure ongoing consumption, and many others besides. So as you know, when you're choosing a cloud solution, there's many, many reasons that you might want to do that. So this is what this extension module is trying to address. If we look at the first question, what should an organisation manage its digital and IT strategy, and thus it turn their cloud strategy well? We already obviously have digital and IT strategy. It's, as we call it internally. I bring it up because it is our most recent. So you can see that with the cloud, it's linking to a lot of other modules within ITIL. So if we look at the other management questions, we realised in terms of the ITIL4 vocabulary to describe the approaches and texts needed, the words like explore, engage, offer, agree, onboard. So if you're looking at a company that's looking at a solution, we bring it to the ITIL methodology. So the words we use in ITIL, which I've just brought up, engage. So you can see that for anybody trying to, who isn't necessarily familiar with it, can bring in this extension module. Again, no foundation needed, so this is a standalone module. They can bring it in and think about what they're trying to do in their business in a management challenge, and then obviously this is how we do it in an ITIL framework. So for those of you familiar with ITIL, I hope you recognise these words. These are used as part of the model, also in the drive stakeholder value, called the customer journey. Again, many of you will be familiar with this, but again, this is throughout all of our products and services, the customer journey. So it helps basically navigate through that journey. And now a cloud service provider or partner or integrator can read the book or go on the course to understand the perspective of their client or prospective client. This might allow them to empathise better and perhaps deliver a better quality advisory or professional service. So I think this is about, so I'm sure I'll get asked this question at the end, who is it for? It is for corporates, but it's also, as I said, for those consultancies who want to work with customers to see what sort of solution they should be providing. So it's a very, very broad ranging framework, I think. Far too many animations on this thing, I think. Somebody else did it for me. So one of the things we write about in the book is the feedback and the feed forward and backward loops. How you use cloud services will create a feedback loop that might change the way you onboard a new team or the way you onboard a new cloud service. So what this is trying to say is, it's not just about deciding what you want and stopping. As you know, with ITIL, it's always about continual improvement. You might be deciding from this that you change many things actually. You've got this feedback and you're feeding forward and feeding back in this sort of customer journey. And it might mean that ultimately you're considering changing quite a lot of services. If you're a consultant and going in working with a company, you might be recommending some of those. So I hope you see what we're trying to achieve here. Again, as you can see, it links back to our standard ITIL diagram. So it's the behaviour and oriented different points in the journey. So the guiding principles. We've got corporate, program, project, functional governance. We've got, you might add, modify, retire value streams. So going back to that point about you bringing in a new cloud service might mean you change all sorts of different things. It is very much about that service value chain. It's about thinking about the whole organisation and what you might do. Re-architecting practices for cloud solutions and improving the journey. So again, continual improvement. So again, you can see, as we had with the sustainability, the cloud module is thinking along exactly the same lines. It always links to those ITIL guiding principles. I'm doing okay, good. I'm nearly there, Marcus, you'll be glad to know. So where do the extension modules fit? Let me just bring this up. They fit to the side. So we are not embedding them into any of the existing designations. As already said, you don't need foundation to do these modules. I'm sure going forward, we'll probably add more modules. So the idea is that we're using the wonderful principles of ITIL that so many companies want, but not putting a barrier of having to do foundation, so making them broader. So there are extension modules in these broader suites for not just IT specialists, but needing the IT specialists, but having that broader client base, if you like, that management and broader base. So they're very much standalone ITIL modules, not embedded within the existing framework. So I hope that makes sense. Happy to take questions at the end. And as always, pointing you to our different websites. So we've got the Axelos site, PeopleCert site, and obviously as partners, you know, you can always contact PeopleCert. So thank you for your time. I hope that's given you a flavour of how exciting the two new extension modules are, and happy to take any more questions.
I have to say thank you for your time and that you are be part of our event. It's always an honor to have you here. Indeed, I have some questions. One is the same like we had in the other extension module. How's the exam looks like? Is it the same like in?
Yes.
Or...
Yes, the same.
Okay. Now it comes to the question what have to come, but you know from me every time when we talk, what about translations in German?
Yes, in fact, I'm glad you've asked me that question, Marcus. We didn't set it up in advance, did we? But one of the real commitments from PeopleCert, and one of the great things about being one company now, is the real commitment to translate much faster. So I know maybe some of the partners on the call would have been on some of our recent announcements. We have a real commitment to translate both the exam and any core guidance very quickly, and German is always one of our absolute top languages, so there will be announcements about translations very soon.
Okay, great. Is it correct that there are for each module have its own new publications, or there's really publication for it, a real book?
Now, it's a good one. On the sustainability, I think there's 4 physical books in existence. So obviously sustainability, we don't want to be printing and destroying lots of trees. They all have their own books, but they'll be digitally available. So they're not printed. But they do both have their own small core guidance books, which are ebooks.
Yeah.
And we also have, just for information, courseware. Now I know, I don't know entirely, Marcus, who's on this call, so courseware is very much something that training organisations use, but we've developed some courseware for very quick delivery. So if you are a training organisation on this call, we have courseware available that you can look at, and then it will help you do the teaching of these new frameworks very quickly.
Okay. If there are any other course providers in this call, go out. That's my course. That's my.
Okay, that's the trouble with not knowing exactly who's on the call.
They're only joking.
Other courseware providers are available.
Yeah. Let me think about it. Are there any other NGOs? I can remember to someone else. So okay. We have public. Perhaps there's one point we will check. What will change in February? That all publications will be part of the exam delivery. So everybody who's doing an ITIL course will get the original publications together with the exam. Is that correct?
That's right, yes. So from February, you get the core guidance with the exams. So it'll be, and there'll be ebooks. So it makes, we can update them all regularly. So all of your teams that you have on the courses will have access to the very latest core guidance.
Yeah, we love these decisions very much because there are so much more guidance in the books, which are going over the content you can deliver in a training, and so the people are getting much more out of it when they're getting the original books, because training material is always focused on the syllabus, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So that was all the questions what I had. I would only hint out that we will have tomorrow an interview with Byron Nicolaides. So Byron is the CEO and founder of PeopleCert. And what Catherine has mentioned, in the last year, there was an acquisition from PeopleCert. They come together, PeopleCert and Excelos, in one company. And everybody who's interested in the background of that, tomorrow I will have Byron 1 hour in an interview, and we will. He is very. I know him very well about the last years. He's a very open man, and he will explain us a little bit about the backgrounds, what is happening there, what are the plans, what are the strategy. It will be very interesting. So don't miss it. Tomorrow at 10, I will have this interview 1 hour with him, and there are much more further information about the backgrounds, what's happening here in the ecosystem. So, Catherine, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We staying in touch and stay healthy. That's the most important thing. If we don't have the chance to talk again this year, then have a great Christmas time and all good things what could happen for next year for all of us. And we see us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you for inviting me to speak. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the conference. Bye-bye.
I switch back to German now. Also ich wechsle das wieder auf Deutsch. Schön, dass Sie mit dabei waren in der Session. Wie gesagt, um 10 morgen früh haben wir den Byron Nicolaides im Interview. Guck mal gerade, hier kam noch eine Frage. Ja, hier sind die Abkündigungstermine, werden hier abgefragt von den ITIL4 Qualifikationen. Ja, so wie sie hier drin stehen, Mitte 22 werden die ITIL3 Expert-Kurse abgekündigt auf Englisch. Das ist korrekt, so wie das hier steht. Also die Informationen, die die Teilnehmerin hier hat, die stimmen so. Alles klar. Ansonsten bleiben Sie uns treu. Gucken Sie noch, was noch so weiter heute und morgen passiert. Wie gesagt, morgen das Interview mit Byron kann ich Ihnen sehr ans Herz legen. Wird bestimmt spannend. Und wir sehen uns bestimmt in den weiteren Sessions. Passen Sie auf sich auf, bleiben Sie gesund. Bis nachher. Tschüss.